Oh boy, we are starting 2025 hot because the Vancouver Canucks and the drama surrounding Elias Pettersson and JT Miller is not dying down. Not because of anything that happened in the past few days between the team. Oh no, Pettersson's injured, so he's not really there. But earlier this morning, you had yourselves a very interesting podcast clip from the Missin Curfew Podcast. Shane O'Brien, Scotty Upshall, you know the crew here. Of course, Shane O'Mac was a former Vancouver Canuck. But you know who also is a former Vancouver Canuck? Brad Richardson, who made himself an appearance on this show earlier this morning and who played with Miller and Pettersson, sharing some of the insight into the tension in the Canucks locker room. You can see Missin Curfew has their sponsors. By the way, we have a sponsor, ExpressVPN. If you need your VPN updated or anything of the matter, then you could click the first link in the description. It helps me out, it helps you out, everybody wins. And ExpressVPN is there for all of your VPN needs. However, in regards to the Missin Curfew podcast, this is a very interesting clip. And I actually had to take a second look. I was like, wait a minute, Brad Richardson played with both Miller and Pettersson? No, he didn't. Richardson was on the Canucks in 2014. That's before Pettersson was even drafted. What's he talking about? And then I looked and I was like, yeah, Richardson played with Vancouver 2013-14, 2014-15, then he went to Arizona and he was really good over there. And then I saw the bottom, I was like, wait a minute. Right. Brad Richardson retired as a member of the Vancouver Canucks. He was playing in Calgary in 2021-2022, then he was placed on waivers and claimed by Vancouver. This was the day that Tyler Mott got traded to New York for a fourth. Vancouver traded Mott and they claimed Richardson on the same day, so the roster didn't shake up all too much, but Richardson had 17 games with the Vancouver Canucks in 21-22, getting 4 points in the process. He is now a scout for the Calgary Flames, so Richardson at 39 years old is no longer playing, which is okay. I mean, he had a long career, pretty good career too. However, he did have some insight as to Pettersson and Miller. And I'm going to leave a link in the description to the video of Missin Curfew. You could go out there and listen to it yourself. However, in order to take a look at what Richardson says, this is the comment. This was posted onto the Canucks sub. Let me tell you this, and I'll be honest, super honest with you. When I was in that dressing room with those guys, I love JT. Love him. He's an effing animal. But I even told him, I said, hey, you're too hard on this kid. You're too hard on Elias Pettersson. And I said, I know you're saying exactly what I think, but he's a kid that when you're on him, he's gonna shut it down. I told Miller, like, hey, you're gonna lose this guy if you keep on doing that. That's what I said to him. And hey, JT, he's the man. But there is a lot of tension and something's gotta give, I guarantee. I'm not saying you have to love every guy on your team. It helps, but something's gonna give there. So, we'll see. And this is really interesting because for the first time, the very first time, it's not a Friedman or a Ian McIntyre or somebody else, a Satyr Shah or a Drager. It's not anybody who is outside the team going out there and saying anything. It's literally a guy who played for the squad, who had 17 games, just 17 games on the team in 2022. And even he is saying, yeah, there's a lot of tension there. Miller's too hard on PD. And PD's a young kid. He's not the kind of guy that's going to take that criticism and use it to up his own game. He shuts down when you go after him. And that, I think, is one of these things that has sort of brought itself to the forefront the past little while here. When Pettersson scored the 2 goals against San Jose, he did the period interview, or the second period intermission interview with Amazon Prime, and he said something to the effect of, oh, it was good to get those 2 shots off because it reminds me that I still got it. I still have it. I'm still able to score. And I think somebody said on Twitter, or I don't know if it was on 650 on the postgame show or something like that, but part of the reason why Elias Pettersson excelled so much under Bruce Boudreau is because, not just the line mates, but because Boudreau is more of a positive, motivating kind of guy. Oh, you want to play with this player? Sure. Oh, yeah, look at that. You scored a really nice goal. Good job. You're really good. Pats on the back. Everybody loves it. Country club vibes be damned. Bruce Boudreau, positive affirmation for Elias Pettersson. That's exactly what the guy needs. He's not the kind of player that is going to get better if you keep Army Coach Sergeant Camp drilling the guy into the ground. Miller is that guy. He amps up the intensity. He gets better when the pressure is on. Okay, maybe it's not like he gets better. There are moments where he does kind of lays around in the back check, but still, he gets more engaged mentally when he's put through the ringer and when he's angry and when people challenge him. Pettersson's like the total opposite. They're not the same in that respect. And so for Brad Richardson, a former player who was in the room with those guys, who had a veteran presence on that team at 37 years old back in that time frame, who even said, Miller, you gotta calm down. You gotta stop being on this guy. In that season, just FYI, you want to talk about the Canucks in 21-22, Miller did have 99 points in that year. He was the best player on the team. Second best was Pettersson with 68 points, and then you had Quinn Hughes, Bo Horvat, Garland, and Besser. Tanner Pearson also had a 34-point effort in that season too, which is kind of interesting to see. Pettersson then exploded for 100 points the next year in 2022-2023, a year where a lot of us were talking about JT not really being all too great, and him kind of getting lazy and swearing and not really giving it his best effort now. So that year was a really weird year. Everything was flipped. Miller had 99 points, Pettersson had 100 plus, and then a year after, Miller had a 100 plus season and Pettersson dropped off. Let's go back over onto the Canucks subreddit and read some replies to the Brad Richardson comments. The interesting thing is that Richardson is validating Miller's harshness or criticism of Petey, but not in the way it's delivered. So basically, Petey does need to improve his preparation, but Miller also needs to chill in calling Petey out. I think this has been fairly obvious since the beginning of the drama. JT is most likely pushing Pettersson to hit guys and play grittier hockey when that's just not who he is as a player, and it's antagonizing for Pettersson. You see this in his interviews and his social media posts. I personally would rather keep Pettersson. Another reply says, I doubt Miller wants him to be a power forward. I suspect Miller wants Petey to be a pro. Prepared more for the season and for each game, be mentally and physically engaged at all times, consistency, do the hard things every night. I think what Richardson is saying is that Petey isn't being a pro, but Miller yelling at him isn't helping and could be making it worse. The conversation then slips over in the clip and on the subreddit as to whether or not Miller or Pettersson should get traded, one or the other, but I don't really want to dive into that right now. We have talked a lot about whether or not either of those guys should get traded. Another comment on the sub says, at this point, Miller should worry about his own game, not Petey's. This may be the problem. His game has been crap all year, so maybe he's taking it out on others. I mean, if that happened, then it's a very human thing to do, right? If you're frustrated with yourself, you end up taking it out on the ones around you. And if that's the case, I mean, it's on the coaching staff to be able to step in and say, hey, wait, Millsy, you got to calm down, buddy. You need to start playing your own game as well. Stop telling others how to do it when you can't even do it well yourself. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of nuance to this situation, and I think it's all encapsulated by this thread here at the bottom. It feels like the entire situation has been encapsulated. JT Miller is extremely tough on Pettersson. Pettersson doesn't appreciate it. Basically what Elliot Friedman said. Miller and the team need to bend, and Miller can't cross a line. Yes, but basically also what Alvin said. You have to prepare yourself correctly, nothing gets easier, and you have to be accountable. So it seems like the management and the coaching staff has sided with Miller. Not necessarily Miller, but the mental makeup and a personality of the players like Miller. It's not really about Miller versus Petey, but a hard player like Miller versus a softer kind of player like Pettersson. And that is exactly what Richardson said. He agreed with Miller's criticisms, but he did not like the approach of just drilling it into Pettersson over and over again. And so at the end of the day, I feel like this situation is going to be a really big lesson for everybody who pays attention to Vancouver sports and who wants to kind of understand not just how hockey teams work, but how groups in human beings work. Because there are different kinds of people, different kinds of personalities there that feed and thrive off of various things, and for Miller and Pettersson, two of the best players on the Vancouver Canucks, it's very evident that they are so different that for multiple years now, there have been quote-unquote issues. So shout out to Brad Richardson for going out there and revealing it all in this podcast. Big shout out over to ExpressVPN for sponsoring the channel again. But I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this Miller and Pettersson stuff being revealed. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.